There comes a time when the noise of the world grows so loud that the only voice worth hearing is the one that whispers in stillness. We chase answers, defend our worth, and fight for recognition, but heaven moves in silence. When you stop striving to be seen, God begins to reveal what was hidden. When storms rise and confusion surrounds you, the natural instinct is to speak, to defend yourself, to prove your point, to demand understanding, but divine wisdom says otherwise. The greatest strength is not found in noise, but in focus, not in pride, but in humility, not in endless speaking, but in sacred silence. Focus on God. In every distraction, the enemy hides his most subtle traps: fear, worry, pride. The moment you lift your eyes off the chaos and fix them on God, the storm loses its power. Faith is not blindness, it is clarity that sees beyond what the eyes can understand. God is still working, even when you see nothing moving. Humble yourself. Pride blinds the soul. It makes you believe you can control what only grace can fix. True humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. When you bow in surrender, you rise in strength. The humble heart becomes a vessel God can trust with his greatest assignments. Stay silent. Sometimes silence is not weakness. It's warfare. When you resist the urge to speak, to retaliate, or to explain yourself, heaven fights for you. God does his best work in the unseen, unheard spaces. Let your silence speak faith louder than your words ever could. In the quiet, your spirit becomes tuned to divine frequency. In the stillness, God restores what words have destroyed. When you stop trying to be heard, you begin to hear him clearly. So today, focus on God, humble yourself, and stay silent. For in that posture lies your greatest victory, your deepest peace, and your clearest path forward. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, yet it is one of the most powerful weapons a person can possess. In moments of conflict or misunderstanding, our instinct is to defend ourselves, to justify our actions, to make others see our side. But there is a deeper strength in choosing restraint. When you remain silent, you give space for truth to reveal itself, and for God to fight battles that were never yours to begin with. The loudest person in the room may win attention, but the silent one wins clarity. Silence is not absence, it is presence. An awareness of what truly matters, and a refusal to let noise define your peace. The power of silence lies in its discipline. It requires patience when emotions want to explode, faith when answers seem delayed, and humility when ego demands recognition. Every moment you choose silence over reaction, you demonstrate mastery over your flesh and surrender to divine timing. You stop trying to control outcomes and start trusting that God's justice is far more precise than human revenge. Your silence becomes a statement of faith, a declaration that you believe in a power greater than your own voice. Sometimes silence is where miracles form. It's where God molds your character, strengthens your spirit, and reveals what words could never express. It's in that quiet space that wisdom takes root and pride fades away. You begin to see that silence doesn't mean doing nothing. It means standing still long enough for heaven to move. The world shouts, but faith whispers. When you hold your peace, you invite heaven to speak louder than any accusation, insult, or fear. So don't fear being misunderstood. Don't rush to explain yourself. In silence, your spirit speaks volumes. Let your calmness confuse your enemies, your restraint teach your heart, and your peace prove your strength. When life becomes overwhelming and everything around you seems uncertain, the most powerful thing you can do is shift your focus back to God. The world will always try to capture your attention through fear, comparison, and distraction. But focus is the anchor that keeps your spirit steady. When your eyes are fixed on God, storms may rage, but they can no longer shake you. The moment you stop staring at what's falling apart and start looking at the one who holds it all together, peace begins to return. Faith is born not from what you see, but from where you choose to look. Focusing on God means trusting His plan, even when you don't understand it. It means believing that every delay, every detour, every disappointment has divine purpose. When you focus on your problems, they grow larger. When you focus on God, His power overshadows your fears. You begin to see that what looked like loss was really preparation, that what felt like a setback was actually positioning you for something greater. Your focus becomes your faith in motion. It determines whether you sink in the storm or walk on the water. To focus on God is also to quiet the noise of the world. It's turning away from opinions, negativity, and fear-driven voices that try to dictate your path. In that stillness, you begin to see clearly again. God's voice becomes stronger, His direction more certain. You realize He was never silent. You were simply too distracted to hear Him. When your attention is fixed on Him, confusion fades and peace takes over. So guard your focus like treasure. Don't let temporary chaos steal your eternal vision. Keep your eyes on the one who never fails. Even when you can't trace His hand, trust His heart. The moment you focus fully on God, everything else falls into its rightful place. And what once overwhelmed you becomes a reminder of how strong faith truly is. Humility is not about lowering your worth. It's about recognizing where your strength truly comes from. When you humble yourself before God, you are not diminishing who you are. You are aligning yourself with divine order. Pride wants control, but humility releases it. Pride seeks recognition, but humility seeks truth. When you let go of the need to be right, to be seen, or to be praised, you make room for grace to flow freely through your life. Humility is the posture that invites heaven's power to work on your behalf, because it acknowledges that without God, you can do nothing, but with Him, all things are possible. There's a quiet confidence in humility, a peace that doesn't need to prove itself. You stop fighting for validation because you understand that your value doesn't come from people's approval, but from God's presence within you. Humility transforms how you see yourself and how you treat others. It teaches you to listen more, to serve without expecting reward, and to trust that God sees every hidden act of obedience. The humble heart doesn't chase greatness. It becomes great because it's willing to be small in the eyes of the world. When you humble yourself, you open the door for divine elevation. God resists the proud but lifts the humble. He doesn't promote arrogance. He promotes those who quietly prepare, who wait patiently, and who trust His timing more than their ambition. Humility is strength under control. It's knowing you could fight back, but choosing to let God fight for you instead. In a world obsessed with self-promotion and noise, humility is a sacred rebellion. It's choosing stillness when everyone else demands attention, choosing service when others seek status. And in that quiet surrender, you find a deeper power, one that doesn't boast but builds, doesn't demand but delivers. True greatness begins when pride ends. When you bow before God, you stand taller before life, and every step you take becomes a reflection of His strength, working through your surrender. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the presence of clarity. In a world that glorifies business, it takes courage to pause. Yet it is in the pause that God speaks most clearly. When you slow down long enough to listen, you begin to understand that the answers you've been chasing were waiting in the silence all along. Stillness is where your heart and heaven meet. It's where confusion dissolves and peace begins to rise. It doesn't mean life is calm, it means your spirit is calm even when life is not. In stillness, God resets your vision. When you're constantly moving, reacting, and worrying, your spiritual sight becomes clouded. But when you quiet your soul, you start to see things as they truly are. The fog lifts, and the path ahead becomes visible, not because it changed, but because your focus did. Stillness helps you separate what matters from what doesn't. It reveals that many of the things you were anxious about were never yours to carry in the first place. Stillness is not passive. It's powerful. It's the act of trusting God enough to wait. Waiting doesn't mean inactivity. It means spiritual maturity. It means believing that what's meant for you will come. Not by force, but by faith. The world will tell you that movement equals progress, but in God's kingdom, progress often begins in stillness. This is where strength is restored, where perspective is renewed, and where purpose becomes clear again. When you allow yourself to be still, you give God permission to rearrange what you cannot. You stop striving and start surrendering. You stop reacting and start receiving. In that quiet, He whispers direction, peace, and reassurance that He's been working all along. So be still, not because everything is perfect, but because you trust the One who is. Stillness doesn't delay destiny. It prepares you for it. And when you rise from that sacred quiet, you rise with divine clarity and unshakable peace. When you let God defend you, you choose peace over pride and faith over fear. There will be moments when you are misunderstood, falsely accused, or treated unfairly, and everything in you will want to fight back, to explain, to prove, to set the record straight. But the truth is, when you step aside, God steps in. His defense is far greater, far wiser, and far more complete than anything you could accomplish through words or actions. When you stop trying to vindicate yourself, you give heaven permission to reveal the truth in its own time. Letting God defend you is not weakness, it's surrender with confidence. It means trusting that He sees what others don't, hears what you can't, and knows what's hidden behind every situation. Your silence doesn't go unnoticed. It speaks volumes of faith. While others waste energy fighting for validation, you rest in the assurance that God will make things right. He doesn't just clear your name. He restores your peace, your honor, and your destiny in ways human defense never could. When you allow God to fight for you, your energy shifts from reaction to restoration. You stop feeding bitterness and start cultivating faith. You understand that revenge is temporary satisfaction, but divine justice is eternal victory. Sometimes the greatest revenge is peace. Peace that confuses those who tried to destroy you. When you remain calm, you're declaring that your trust is not in people, but in the one who governs every outcome. The battles you choose determine the strength you keep. Don't waste your energy proving yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. Stand still, stay quiet, and let God reveal what only He can. Time will prove what words cannot. God has a way of turning every accusation into elevation and every betrayal into breakthrough. So hold your peace. The truth will speak, justice will come, and when it does, it will be undeniable that it was God, not you, who won the fight. When you choose to focus on God, instead of reacting to circumstances, you align yourself with divine victory. The moment you decide to let faith lead rather than emotion, heaven begins to move on your behalf. Divine focus means keeping your eyes fixed on the promises, not the problems, on what God said, not on what fear whispers. Every time you resist the urge to panic or complain, you strengthen your spirit and weaken the enemy's influence over your life. Victory doesn't come from striving, it comes from trusting. It's not about how loud your prayer is, but how steady your faith remains when nothing seems to change. Divine focus brings stability in chaos. The world may crumble around you, people may doubt you, and obstacles may rise. But when your gaze stays on God, none of it can shake you. You understand that every delay, every rejection, and every challenge is not punishment but preparation. God uses these moments to refine your heart, to teach you endurance, and to remind you that His plan is never late. What looks like a setback is often a setup for your greatest breakthrough. When your focus is firm, peace follows. You stop reacting to what others do and start responding to what God is doing. You stop fighting small battles and start walking in divine strategy. This kind of focus doesn't mean you ignore reality. It means you see beyond it. You look past the present storm and trust the one who controls the wind. The enemy's greatest weapon is distraction, but your greatest defense is focus. Keep your eyes on God, and every storm loses its power. The moment you stop fighting for control and start resting in His direction, victory becomes inevitable. Faith-filled focus is not passive. It's powerful. It invites God's hand to move, and when He moves, no opposition can stand. Victory belongs to those who see through eyes of faith and refuse to look away. So stand firm, stay faithful, and keep your eyes on God. Because when your focus is fixed on Him, no force in hell, no storm on earth, and no doubt in your heart can stop the victory He has already written for your life.